Leland live on your radio. You see my little, if you're watching on the camera, got my I voted sticker. Did you get a chance to vote yet, AJ? Any chance you even cared today? Because most people didn't. Most
Yeah,
people
I
did not.
did.
I'm sorry. Oh, you had a cough in there. So where'd AJ go? I'm looking at him. It's not like when I'm in the home studio. I don't know what the hell you're doing. AJ just disappeared, man. He's trying to get
I
his
know, I'm
headphones.
here. I thought I had my headphones out, but
Dude, I went in this morning and my poll, I went much later. I usually do it first thing so I don't get busy and miss, especially on a day like today. And I was the 46th person at almost 10 o'clock. So it was really about 9:30, I guess. And so there was that's about 15 people an hour at my poll, which is abysmal. And then a couple of people straggled in after me. And I hung around and talked to everybody. Turns out a lot of the poll workers at my poll listened to the show, so it was good to hear everybody. I talked to a lot of folks. And I wanted to give a shout out. Keat, let me pronounce it right, Keat Delatorre. His sister works the polls, and she was all about, she goes, my brother's your biggest fan. I said, well, let me give him a shout out. So, hey, Keat, what's up, bro? Good thing all those folks. And again, I always try to remember to do this, and sometimes I'm forgetful, but thank you to the folks that go out and do that work. I think the public is so rude, and you got to sit there. The polls are open for 12 hours. You've got a couple hours of work to do to get them open, and then a couple hours afterward to get the votes turned in. And it's a long day for these folks. And they volunteer to do it. And they have to be very patient and meticulous. And I always appreciate them, even on times when I've been frustrated too because of lines and whatnot. I've been in this same general area. They've moved the locations a few times, but I've been out like when Trump's on the ballot, big presidential year when everybody's fired up.
Mm-hmm.
And there'd be an hour wait, lines around the block, standing in the rain 2 or 3 times in the last few years. Today, I was number 46.
Yeah.
You could have put all us in a Waffle House.
Yeah, it was very light at my precinct as well too, in Helena. So it was very interesting to walk up in there, and it was like, oh, thank God someone showed up.
Yeah. You want some cookies?
Oh my God! Here, have all the stickers. I cut up all these stickers last night to make sure that they were available for you. And yeah,
You know, one of the things is I'm now going to a church location. It's Double Oak Community Church. I used to go to church there years ago. Great little church, and they put out snacks for. I've never seen that at a poll.
Nice.
The church being nice out in the lobby area. They put little snacks and waters out for everybody. I actually took a water the last time.
I just get people try to hand me campaign stuff. They'll just stand in front of the precinct and be like, hey, thank you for your vote. I'm like, oh, I don't know you.
Yeah, it's just always. So I did. I had a time where I didn't wear my voted sticker, but I said I got to wear it today, man.
Yeah,
old times.
Can we do a vote real quick? Since
Sure,
today
yeah.
is a primary election, can we like stick to a sticker design? Because I'll see some stickers and I'm like, oh, I wanted that sticker. Who is the sticker picker? Because I need to know.
Picker? They've been the same for a long time, haven't they? I mean,
No, some of them are different.
Well, I see what you mean. They're a little inconsistent. Depending on,
Yeah.
I think we have some left over from years ago.
I'm just saying because I like the one that has like the shape of Alabama.
Oh, the little that's right. There used to be a shape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the whole sticker was a shape.
Yeah.
Hard times were cutting back. Made in China. I don't know. I just wish the adhesive was a little stronger.
Oh yeah.
Because I knock this thing off all the time. Usually they don't even last a day. But I had this tradition one time where I had this little mirror inside a closet where I would get dressed. It was just a little tiny mirror on the wall, and I would just stick them on that mirror. One day I did it after voting, and I did it the next election, and I probably had 30 of those things all lined up on. I don't know why. It's just something stupid I started doing.
Yeah.
But I think it's also the only time I've ever gone out, and this was the only thing on the ballot, on my ballot, because I vote in the 6th district, was Gary Palmer and Case Dixon. That was it. That was my whole ballot. And our buddy Gary just texted me his ballot. Same thing. He said he and his wife were number 16 and 17 at about the same time, about 9 o'clock over on Chapel Road. I used to vote over there years ago too. So yeah, it is super light. And I'm not saying it's panicky, but I've seen a lot of officials sort of putting out last minute calls for people to get out. And I noticed Gary Palmer's team did that a little while ago. And I'm just saying, if you're an incumbent and you're having to do this redo primary election, and it's just a lackluster turnout, you've got to be a little concerned, even in a case where, and I think Case Dixon's a fine young man. I'm glad he's out there. I don't mind him challenging the system. I was a little like that too in my 20s. Hell, I guess I'm still like that. I just wasn't interested in running for anything. But um, when you're being challenged and you've been there for a minute, this is the kind of election where weird things can happen. In other words, I'm not predicting Gary's going to, I think he's going to win handily. I really do. But I don't blame them for being a little bit concerned that they need to, you got to get your vote out no matter what the circumstances, even though this is almost an under the radar deal. It seems to me that perhaps maybe I've gone out to a referendum where we had one single item because they called a referendum for the state. But generally, Alabama will pile on and put more things on that ballot if they're getting people out, especially when they're trying to sneak something in, a tax or something, or some flock cameras. I don't know. They're trying to sneak things in. They'll stick it on a ballot with other things when they get the public to come out. Sometimes they do that just to justify the expense of having a referendum election. But yeah, so there's that. Election day. And of course, we'll know tomorrow pretty much that we've just reelected the same old people. It's funny how we do these things. All right, real quick on the weather, just as I get cranked up, we're not nearly as slammed as we were yesterday. Yesterday was just really nuts for a Monday with all the content we had, all the guests that came in, all the calls that came in. You guys on the Fauci deal just slammed the phones. And I've got some updates on the Fauci story, too, I'll get to in just a little bit. But there is a massive tornado outbreak, thunderstorm happening up in the Midwest right now. And it's covered several states, Ohio, Indiana. It's now bearing down on Chicago. I don't know if it's gotten through Chicago yet. I think I've mentioned it on the air. One of my sons had to move to Chicago. He's not been there a long time. So you always worry about where your kids and your grandkids are. So I haven't heard from them today. By the way, it's my daughter-in-law's birthday. So happy birthday to Laura.
Happy birthday.
Like she's listening. She's busy out there making bank. But nonetheless, they're up there in Chicago. And it's really rare for a urban area that dense to see this kind of activity. And they had warnings going out all near Chicago to the west. Now, I haven't seen any damage reports coming in from the actual city. And it seems to me, and I know the meteorologists, they can debate this because they've got the facts at hand, and I'm just a casual observer, I guess. But it seems to me that the tornado activity seems to have shifted a little bit north in the last couple of years. I don't recall this many severe storms up in the Midwest and so few here in the South. But the weather, it variates, as we all know. The left-wing booger eaters call it climate change. I call it weather. It always varies. It's always varied. Climate, all of it, it's never not varied. So anyway, a little update on that as we get cranked up here this afternoon. Back to the Fauci thing. We'll just start with that today because I got other stuff to get into too. And I know I was just had my rant pants on, and they may get that way again today. It's not going to surprise me we get more revelations today because they got a lot more that came off that phone. But some other stuff we found out about overnight. This stuff becomes literally a can of worms, and that's probably the best description for it. And it's I go back sometimes to the Bill Cosby story. I don't know if y'all remember this. First time Bill Cosby was accused of date raping people, nobody believed it. I mean, it was America's dad. We all grew up with Bill Cosby. I grew up as a kid with Bill Cosby, with the Cosby Kids and all that stuff, and Fat Albert and all that. I mean, we all loved Bill Cosby growing up. He felt like our own father, I guess. And then you get these kind of allegations, and you're like, no, not Bill Cosby. And then the first revelation led to another person coming out. Then the drip, another person coming out. The dam kind of breaks of people that secretly had all this information and find the courage to speak up when it's finally out there and they're not being ostracized. Now, Fauci is a completely different situation. He's a different type of criminal. But now that one piece of information comes out, other people are connecting dots that they were told to shut up about. And they're back out in the open and reasserting themselves. There's a billionaire, and I forget his last name. He's pretty well known. I read it just a little while ago before I came into the studio. But he went on to some podcast today or a newscast and said that his wife had 7 miscarriages during this time period. And he's considering litigation, and he's pretty certain they were associated with the forced vaccination that they underwent. So this isn't just bureaucrats covering for bureaucrats and lawyers sitting in front of Congress people getting nowhere and talking in circles and using platitudes. This has become real on a very visceral level on the street with real people that have their own stories. And I think while they were told they were poo pooed by their doctors, like we heard about yesterday, or their friends or relatives or CNN or whoever was gangbanging the whole country over shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. They now have courage. It's been long enough. That machine doesn't exist anymore. We've got other places to exchange information. And I think this story is only going to get deeper and wider, including this jerk off, Jake Tapper, who just popped up on my TV screen he's over on Fox. I don't know. They're quoting him somehow. He was part of it too. He had hanging out with Fauci, having dinner, spinning for him the next day. So here's some of the new stuff we found out. It's not just him. So it's Dr. Burks, the scarf lady. She's now under scrutiny. She does not have a partner. The lady that was at CDC, and pardon my faded memory, her name was like Wozniak or whatever her last name started with a W. I'll pull it up here in a minute. She's back. Clips of her reassuring people and doubling down on sort of wanting to force these inoculations on pregnant women. And let's stay focused to pregnant women. Yesterday, it was easy for us to go into our own anecdotal stories over heart issues and other things that that also surfaced. And I think all that needs scrutiny, because if the pattern is they were deceiving pregnant women, they were deceiving young athletes and everybody else for some reason to keep pushing this vaccine. But so some of the new stuff today is we have emails. Again, this wasn't part of Fauci's phone, but people are now able to connect dots, and they've rediscovered some emails where the CDC was emailing Facebook and some of the social media companies and directly and getting them to pull down posts and content that were challenging the safety for pregnant women. Let me repeat that so we're all on the same page. So the issue is miscarriages. The issue is stillbirth. The issue is the danger versus the effectiveness for pregnant women. We all had that choice. Is it an age thing? Is it a condition thing? Is it your health? There was a time when it made sense. If you had lung issues, if you had heart issues, comorbidities, if you were obese, if you were over 60 or whatever, really it was over 50, they started growing more concerned. It seemed you had a greater propensity to be damaged by the virus. And so it made any risks of the shot worth tolerating. Does that make sense? When you compare risks, the risk of the shot seemed minimal compared to the risk of the COVID. But not for pregnant women. Pregnant women are usually younger people. They are in their 20s, generally healthy enough to become pregnant in the beginning. And then they were forced to be inoculated with this untested, largely unproven. It was tested, but it wasn't proven to be effective and safe. And your public officials guiding other officials in government, in other public health spaces, were in concert working together to not only not let you know about the dangers, but to censor any reporting of the dangers. Does that make sense? So it was offense and defense. They were playing offense by telling you to get the shot. They were playing defense by running over to Facebook and Meta and those operations, and because they had symbiotic relationship with the Biden administration, and they would pull down anything the administration asked them to pull down. Straight, 100% First Amendment violation censorship. So I'm not so unsure. Some people that got their posts pulled, not just jackwagons out here that have an opinion that don't know the science, but actual scientists that wanted to have their voices heard in this national debate were silenced, blackballed by the government using the third-party cutout of social media in those days. Sometimes I think we've moved past that danger zone to the point where we forget what a cabal that was and how oppressive that was to thought and freedom and independence in this country. And then we have some other information today, and I'm not as well versed on this, but I'm going to keep looking at it. So we know that there were sort of, I guess it was 3 major companies that came out with COVID vaccines early on. And the big one was Pfizer. And that seems to be the one with the most complications. funky cold Moderna, which is the one I got. They're just called Moderna in real life. But every time I hear Moderna, AJ, I keep that's in my head, just funky cold Moderna. That's the I got that one. And then it was Johnson & Johnson. We talked about Johnson & Johnson
Yeah, those are
yesterday.
my cousins. So,
Yeah,
so that's
those
what
are
I got.
AJ's kin. AJ's kin were told, pull that damn thing off the shelf. People were getting blood clots, so they pulled Johnson & Johnson very early. But all three of those had been approved. So the minute they pulled Johnson & Johnson, you knew. I mean, that I remember having shows on this. That was an alarm bell moment. Why suddenly one, if the protocols are efficient, it would have been okay, right? If they were sufficient. But they were not sufficient to catch Johnson & Johnson until it was used in the real world. And then suddenly, because of the whatever series of events, Johnson & Johnson pulled their vaccine. So we were really down to two for a minute. There's a fourth company called AstraZeneca. Most of you have heard of AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca was actually ahead of the other three in the program, this warp speed, to try to develop something. They came up with a non-mRNA vaccine, and they completed their testing and presented it to the government before Pfizer and Moderna. This is where it gets really even sketchier, believe it or not. This is where you worry about corruption on the monetary level, not just medical ethics. So Fauci found out that AstraZeneca had beat the other three to the punch and started, according to these new documents and connections, he started running interference ahead of AstraZeneca to raise doubts about the effectiveness of the AstraZeneca vaccine, to put them in a corner to give Pfizer and the other companies time to play catch up and get out there first. And the way he did it was he used a board, a scientific board, where he appointed, again, this guy had godlike power over the federal government. He appointed the head of a board and then got that board to raise doubts over AstraZeneca. And then Fauci, there are all kinds of clips, starts going on national television. He went on several shows one morning and made the same points, casting doubt on AstraZeneca. That is corrupt to the core. He was running interference for his buddies at these other companies and didn't even give AstraZeneca a chance to present something to the public that might not have been an mRNA shot. This gets more vile by the minute. So that's some of the newer stuff. I don't doubt that there will be more this week. I tried to simplify that as best as I could. All right, we got so many things to do today, and we hope y'all will hang out with us till 6, and we'll get them all done. First up on the show today is Danny Knowles with the Knowles Group, lifelong buddy of mine. I tell you that every single time. I think that's because this is a personal reference. I'm not qualified to tell you anything about your investing. I'm just not. But I can make an introduction to a guy I believe who can, who I know will sit down with you and give you his best educated effort on how to place your money and get it on track. Whether you're starting out or starting over, Danny and his team can help. He's a good guy, straightforward guy. This is what you need. Sometimes you just need a little tough love to get your financial picture in order, and Danny will do that with you. It's the Knowles Group, N-O-L-E-S, theknowlesgroup.com. Back here in just a minute. It's 227, Leland Live, Alabama Bass. Next up here on the show, if you got a relative or maybe you in a situation where it's hard to get in and out of the bathtub because you got one of those traditional tubs, you probably had it for years in the house. And if you're in a home, by the way, that has all your memories, all your sentimental things, where the home you love, you don't have to leave because of mobility. There are so many ways to make it adaptable to you. One of the first things you should do is get your bathtub situation worked out. And that can be done in 2 days, very affordably with Alabama Bass. They've got a product that they come in and tear that old, hard to get in and out of tub out. Unless you want to keep your tub, and they do have the sit down tubs with the door that you fill up with the quick fill. All that's wonderful. But if you want a stand up shower that you can either roll in or walk into, with all the things you need to steady yourself in there with shelving and handles and seats and all that, even ergonomic plumbing, they'll come get it done for you. Beautiful stuff. This is gorgeous designs, beautiful metal frames. They've got one of them built out down in Pelham if you want to swing by. This company's been around for over 40 years as a company just taking care of bathrooms, and they're really good at it. Award winning. They got awards everywhere from all kind of showcases. And they're your neighbors. They're not going to pressure you. They're not going to treat you like just a target or a customer or like data. They're just going to talk to you, give you their best price, give you time to think about it. And then when you're ready, they'll come do it. 2 days, they're in and out. It's beautiful again. You feel safe again. Or mama or dad. It's time to take care of that problem. It's alabamabaths.com, alabamabaths.com. All right, I got to get into this Trump switcheroo. This is a crazy story and a frightening story at the same time, with Trump sneaking onto a different plane while he was over in Turkey. We'll break that down for you in a minute. Breaking news when we get it. And your phone calls. You guys were so good yesterday. Bring it, 545-9950. Lead on Live, Talk 99.5. Y'all stay tuned. All right, y'all. Crocker Moving Services. Next up here on the show, 2:35. Good to have y'all with us this afternoon. Eric Crocker and his team will get it done for you. Eric's just a squared away guy. When you meet him, you'll see what I mean. This is exactly the personality you want moving your furniture. He is do it right, get it done, very efficient, work with people. The good thing, one of the things I love best about them is how they estimate. There's a science to it, I guess. How they estimate how much stuff you have, how far you got to go, and how long that's going to take. They're pretty spot on because you always worry you don't want somebody running a taxi meter on you and they're just lollygagging and running the clock on the time. They pride themselves on being close to your expectations on what it's going to take. Now, look, stuff happens on any kind of move. They may run into an obstacle that day or something could happen. But for the most part, every time I've ever used them, they've been right there on the spot with how long they thought it would take. So y'all reach out to them, whether you got a big move and you're packing up the house and moving all your things, or whether you are just moving a couple of big things because you don't want to deal with it or can't. It's crockermovingservices.com. Again, they scale their hours. They could come for as little as 2 hours. That's their minimum. Or again, spend 2 weeks with you if you want them to. It's crockermovingservices.com. All right, I was going to hit the phones on this Fauci thing because I know y'all are going to continue to blow it up. People have had time to think about this situation, and it's not getting any better. By the way, it's not just him, and we touched on that yesterday. There's got to be accountability for these other people, especially the non-pardon for giving if they knowingly gave out deadly advice. And it goes back to that old question from Watergate: what did they know and when did they know it? It's the timeline. So we'll go back to that here in just a minute. But first up, it's the Trump switcheroo on the plane, and this is one of the craziest stories. I don't think I've heard a story like this ever in following the president. You know, there have been some close calls, clearly, especially with this president. But I remember when Trump went to Turkey for that big multinational meeting, I was concerned because Turkey's supposed to be an ally. They've always been 1 foot in the east and 1 foot in the west. It's their geography. That goes back to biblical days. The whole area that at one point was Constantinople and all these other they've been at the crossroads of the world for years, and they're still there. So Trump's over there, and you got to wonder, that's close proximity to a lot of enemies. We're in the middle of this Iran thing. Iran has fatwas. They've got edicts out on Trump's life. And we remember the story about when he switched planes. He suddenly switched planes on that trip. We didn't know the whole story. We knew there was a security threat. Some of that was leaked out. In fact, an Air Force, a former Air Force general, I think it was, this weekend just lost his security clearance and is under investigation for leaking information about Air Force One to his media buddies. So there's a conspiracy theory out there that this move by Trump was in part to keep the president safe, but was in part to also smoke out potential media leaks that they suspected within the inner circle. Now, let's go back to what happened. By now, if you've got up this morning and looked at the news, Trump got on the plane in full view of the cameras and the media, walked up the stairs, because we now have a president that can actually do that, waved to everybody, and then got on the plane. But then they snuck him off the plane in a catering cart and switched him to a backup plane, an unmarked Air Force plane, flew him out of Turkey to another Air Force One plane, and then got him on back home. That's stunning. And the first excuse was, well, they just wanted to send the big new plane with the new paint job over to England and let them check it out. We suspected there may be some vulnerability because they sort of rushed that plane out into service. But thank goodness that the Secret Service and the United States Air Force are creative and are thinking that way, and we still don't know the details of the plot. The story today is that the Iranians had a plot to take out the president aboard that plane. They had some ability, either on the ground or in that airport area, to take our president out, an international incident like we've never seen. And somehow we had intelligence on it, and out of precaution, whether it was a legit threat or not, when we say catering cart, I've seen the pictures of it. Y'all have seen them too if you've ever flown, and you see these trucks that'll drive up to the plane and they have a scissor lift, and it's basically got a container on the top of the scissor lift, and they ride right up to the plane. They raise it up to the height of the load-in door, and then they pull up to the plane, and that's where they usually bring the food service in on. They resupply planes that way. Every flight you're on that has some mechanism that's associated with that. Unless you're on Spirit Airlines, and then they just what do they hand out? They went out of business. They hand out hair ties so you can pull your hair back before you punch the lady next to you. They raised up the catering truck, and Trump gets on the catering truck, and they took him out of there on that sort of cart and moved him away from the plane. Everybody, including the media that are aboard the plane, think he's still on the plane. And then Trump goes over to a different plane, and they got the president out of there. So CNN's been having heartburn about it all day. Why? Because we're going to give a news release out and announce a move like this to keep the president safe. We're going to tell them ahead of time what the protocol is, tip off the terrorist. They feel like they were used. Hell yeah, they were used. They're the ones using everybody else. So it's been funny to watch the reaction to this. And for once, you're starting to build some confidence in the people protecting the president, that they're going the extra mile in this extraordinary circumstance of this particular threat environment, which is not like anything the Secret Service has ever seen. We know that statistically, and we know that anecdotally because of all the things we've seen, including the night. And a lot of folks there was a lot of criticism the night of the correspondence dinner when that guy was able to get that close. But they did, I know he tripped, but they were on it, even though they were in a relaxed disposition and should not have been. Those are also backup folks that were called in. So it's a difficult job. There's, it goes back all the way to the days of Reagan and the heroism of the Secret Service that literally in that moment, we all watched it as a country, threw their bodies in front of a gunman, in front of Hinckley, and no doubt saved the president's life back in those days. Whole movies used to be made about this agency, and then it has fallen into a lot of bad reputation disrepair because of scandals, personal scandals with the agents, malfeasance, missed opportunities, and, of course, Butler. Speaking of Reagan, let me shove this in while we're talking about presidential stuff. I didn't even know this was coming out. Can't wait to see it. Don't even know where to find it, but I saw a profile on it today. There is a new movie. It's like maybe a docu-movie called Brink of War. And if you're my age or maybe a little bit younger, you have a very, very formative memory of Ronald Reagan meeting with Gorbachev in this little bitty place in Reykjavik, Iceland. And the world had never seen that. These two leaders, after decades of Cold War, were going to sit down and actually talk. And so they've made a movie about it. And it's got Jeff Daniels, and Jeff Daniels is playing Reagan. I'm trying to remember who's playing Gorbachev. I just watched the clip this morning. The guy from Whiplash, the drum teacher in Whiplash, J.K. I forget his name too. AJ, you're the movie buff. These guys, those are all he plays George Schultz, and it's just, I'm going to be ultimately fascinated. They actually went back to the building where the two leaders met and used the same rooms, same architecture, same everything. It's largely unchanged since the 80s. That was the beginning of a change in the world. And there are those in my generation, if I can be a little optimistic for a minute, there's a lot of reasons to be pessimistic in the news. But we've seen this before where we were in a standoff with danger. And ironically, it was the commies, even though they're inside the country now. We couldn't have imagined this in those days either. And so there are these two leaders who dared to talk about the things they agreed on. And by the way, that was the beginning of a process that ended 2 years later with the fall of the Berlin Wall and a complete change in Eastern Europe. Everything didn't get ultimately better. Russia fell into the hands of oligarchs and of course, Putin. But some of those nations are now free from the Soviet bloc because Reagan dared challenge them. And it wasn't just about the meeting. It was some of the stuff we did up to the meeting in developing our defense infrastructure, rebuilding our economy. We just outgrew them. Like is always the case, capitalism won. We had more money and ability than they did. And the Soviet Union, of course, like other socialist communist systems, just collapsed. But this was a poignant moment for us commie fighters, us people that have hated commies our entire adult lives. And we watch with great remorse what's happening in some of our cities right now with these foolish children falling into that trap. They're just being seduced right into it. But I didn't know this movie was going to be out. I'm not sure where it's available. I'll try to do my best to dig that up, and perhaps we'll play you a clip later in the show or later in the week. But I'm going to do my best to look that up because I want to see how it's portrayed. The actors that are in the role, sometimes I got to judge a movie by the actors choosing to be in the movie. And these are all intelligent actors who pick good scripts. And I think hopefully they didn't bastardize history too much in the retelling of this story. But these kids today, and I say kids because I'm old enough to say that now, 35 and under, my kids' age and younger, don't remember any of this. This wasn't part of their lives. They barely remember the shock of 9/11, which also explains how they're open to Islamic fundamentalism. They're open to the ravages of socialism and communism because they don't have our experience. They don't see the threat that the whole world knew about from a good portion of our lives. And I don't think the world understands how close we were to absolute annihilation and war until this moment, until Reagan was able to use his charm and personality. And Gorbachev gets some credit too for perestroika and glasnost. Remember those Russian words where they were opening up to ideas about entertaining a freer Soviet Union. And the world changed. The world changed because of that kind of leadership. We confronted what we were dealing with in the world. We didn't just try to build a wall and hide from it. We dealt with it. And so I can't wait to check that movie out. So a little bit of a presidential segment there that hour as we look at these two different presidents. And by the way, I fully believe philosophically, Trump is an extension of the Reagan era. And many of you that lived through that understand he's got Reagan's playbook. He's not as smooth. He's not polished. He's not a great communicator like Reagan. He's got his own effective style. But the going back to the roots of a strong defense, a country that's living civilly, aggression on crime. By the way, we got incredible crime numbers that are going down all over the country. Told y'all. And we'll get to that later. But the foreign policy structure, even some of the economic philosophies are an extension of the general ideas that came with Reaganomics and in those era. Whether you agree with them or not, we sort of leapfrog from the chaos since Reagan to now, to somewhere around 2019, and we're still trying to pursue these pro-American policies again. And it may be our last chance to do it. This may be the last president that is, I've said this before in comparing the two. Again, completely opposite personalities, completely opposite in character and everything else. But I was at a convention and I can't remember which one it was. It may have been Philadelphia. It was one of the big Republican conventions. I used to go to those things when I was involved. And I remember I'd left my seat. I'd gone to the bathroom and I was out in the hallway. There were all these vendors and people everywhere, celebrities everywhere, and all these political stars and Hollywood stars. People it was an incredible venue. I remember it's the first time I'd ever seen an HD television. The screen blew my mind. I stopped and went, what kind of TV is that? It was just crystal clear, but it was focused on the room. And in the room, they did this Reagan tribute, which used to be sacrosanct to Republicans. You had to do a Reagan tribute at every political convention. And so it was the moment when they were going to do that, pay tribute to the Gipper. And they ran this, and I could probably find it if I searched around for it. They ran this video, and I remember it was Gingrich. It was Newt Gingrich, who was still active at the time, who said this line. He called Reagan the last great lion of the 20th century. And that line stuck with me because I thought it was so appropriate. And we all understand the metaphor of the lion. And I have declared in the last 10 years on this show that I believe Trump is the first great lion of the 21st century. He is the first bold American president to take on challenges head on, take the risk, do the things, ignore the critics, fight, in his own way. And these two presidents are connected in my lifetime that way. Anyway, a little bit of philosophical explanation. JJ, I see. Well, let me get JJ in here. She never goes that long. I got to get a break, but she knows what to do. JJ, what's up?
Yeah, just really, really quick. You know how we love Reagan, and remember he was involved just before he went into office. Remember what was happening with Carter and the
The
hostages,
hostages, yeah.
and when they knew he was coming in, man, he really got that straightened out quickly. And the other thing is, tear down that wall. Of course, you've already covered that, but there is another Reagan movie. Um, I forget which actor is a really good actor who plays him. He looks just like him in the movie. And I will try to get you it's just called Reagan. But I think it's by the Irwin brothers.
It's not.
Anyway,
It's
really
by Dennis Quaid played him. I was invited to a rough cut of that
Oh,
movie.
yeah.
I never saw the final version, which I need to go back and watch to
Me
give
either.
input on it when
So,
they made it. Yeah.
okay, thanks, Leland. Bye.
Yeah, that was Dennis Quaid, by the way. All right, got on a little Reagan nostalgia there all of a sudden. All right, let's get on over to the break and do our thing. Southern Skies Dermatology bringing you the show tonight. Y'all go get checked. I'm serious about the skin cancer message. It's personal with me. Yeah, they're a sponsor, and Dr. Mario pays to be on this radio show, as Southern Skies has for probably well over a decade now. But I sincerely want all of you to consider, while you're riding down the road, of the many things we do to try to stay healthy, man, consider going to get a skin cancer check, especially if you've never done it. Now, some of you know if you're prone, you've already had a skin cancer issue. I had one of our other sponsors. I don't know if he wants me to tell his business, but he reached out saying that he's got some very serious concerns and wanted to know how to reach Dr. Mario and the team. And I gave him the same info. I'm going to give you southernskiesdermatology.com. This practice is 100% focused on skin cancer, finding it, removing it, saving you from it. A lot of times it's going to be benign or it's going to be a basal cell. You still got to get that removed because it's going to be an unsightly growth. But if it's melanoma, it can be aggressive and it can move fast and it can go internal. And I didn't even know that till a few years ago. It can start to affect tissues in your spine and your brain and your eyes. And then you've got to fight for your life, and you do not want to go through that. Southern Skies Dermatology, a simple visit could change all that and change the trajectory of that in your health. And this is where you want to go. SouthernSkiesDermatology.com, SouthernSkiesDermatology.com. Back in a minute. All right, y'all, 254, Leland Live, Huey Tampon next up here on the show. We're getting into, it's always gun season at my house. I mean, and as soon as I can get free, man, I'm still playing catch up from being gone so long. I'm going to get over to Hughtown. If Tommy's still got one of those AR-12s, man, nobody needs one of these. And it's not anybody's business what you want or need when it comes to this stuff. But I just think they're cool. It'd be good to go in my collection. They're $279 while they last. He's still got $279.99 to be precise. He's still got some very nice additions of the Glocks, the law enforcement Glocks in stock over there. The thing we start to shift to this time of the year is sound suppression. Now, that's for a number of reasons. That's good. And let me depart for a second. The In-N-Out Burger shooting that we saw in Idaho, was that last weekend? It just happened. I think it was the weekend before last. That highly trained shooter, if you noticed on his pistol, I think he had a 5.7, but he had a sound suppressor. Now, you may wonder, what does that have to do with anything? I believe tactically, that guy was so highly trained, he understood it did not give up his position. He was putting lead toward that shooter, which took him out of his shooting activity. I don't think he actually killed the shooter, but he had the perfect stance. He was highly trained, and that suppressor kept him from giving up his position as easily while he put fire down range and distracted that shooter, forcing his death eventually. So there are a lot of reasons to consider that. For hunting, obviously, I guess it's similar. If you've gone to all that trouble to be in your stand, you don't want to give up that position either. Once you fire that gun, you're done for a little while. So consider it. Hunters understand that value too. And Tommy, for a long time now, has had a complete stock, and I don't mean 20 or 30. He's got a room full of suppressors. Those dead air silencers are pretty amazing. Great prices, good selection, probably exactly what you're looking for your rig. So if you're going to get out there in the woods this fall, go by and see them, get to know them. You probably have your favorite shop, like I've always had over the years. You got places that we've all come to go, and maybe your daddy took you there back in the day. But look, comparison shop. Don't be an idiot. Get a good deal when you can, and compare what Tommy's got and how they do their gun counter versus other folks in town, and you'll see what I mean. It is, of course, over there on Brook Lane Drive, Huey Tampon. By the way, he sort of teased me a little bit. I don't know how much he's going to be able to well, I don't want to get in trouble with Tommy. Well, Tommy told me he's got a big sale coming up. Let me just say, and he hasn't fixed a date on it yet, but he reached out and said, when should we start promoting this? This is going to be big. I said, well, let me know the date and we'll talk about it. So I'm teasing you that I'm going to be teasing you about a big sale coming up at Huey Town Palm. All right, let's see what else we can throw in there just before we get out of here. The crime statistics, I referenced that in the last segment. The crime statistics nationwide have gone through the floor. Now, it's easy to ascribe why that's happened. While you'll have a lot of mayors in blue cities like Birmingham to claim somehow they've done something differently. And I will say, I'll give credit, Birmingham has had a change in their police administration. They are being more aggressive. They're dealing with the same thuggery that other inner city cops have to deal with. And that's what drives a lot of the gun violence in this country is our cities. That's not a secret. And I've studied this and covered it for decades now. And it wanes, it comes and goes. And I've given this speech so many times, it's like a pendulum. We go soft on crime, violence goes way up. We get back hard on crime, it goes way down. We did that in the 90s, 3 strikes and all that, as abused as that program was, like everything else the government does. They couldn't just do it properly. Crime did a nosedive because we were locking people up and getting them away from the rest of us. And it's happening again. Some of this is the deportations, and that's a provable statistic. Some of it, and it varies state to state. Chicago is having a nightmare right now. There have been more people killed in Chicago than killed in some wars after the same length of time. But there's a statistic out today that between Miami, Orlando, and Tampa, there have been just a couple of dozen murders this entire year in those metro areas, unlike some other states. So now we've got this experiment of what policies work and what won't at the same time under a different president that's not allowing the Wild West and we see what's working. You got to crack down on the criminals. That's it. And it's happening, and that's a good thing. Back in a minute.